Hey guys, good evening, and I am back with some more videos for my video series. It's going to be going on over the next couple weeks. So we're about 7 or 8 videos in now, and last night we talked about fasting, some of the downfalls of fasting for some individuals, and kind of what can follow on the heels of that is thyroid. And I'm sorry, not thyroid. I'm going to be talking about thyroid though. Low carbs. So, keto is very popular right now. A lot of people drop their carbs when they want to lose weight quickly, things like that. So I do want to say there are some individuals that do definitely need to limit their carbs. That's for sure. I'm not carb phobic, but I'm also not a low carb, promoter per se. I am the type of person that recommends the carbs that are going to be right for you in the amounts that are going to be right for you. So we're going to be talking about some things that can happen to people when they drop their carbs too low, that can actually stagnate their progress and cause other problems that people don't really talk about that often. So the first thing that I want to talk about is thyroid function. So what people may not realize, maybe what they have not been taught, is that thyroid function can be impacted by an excessively low carb diet for the individual. And I have to emphasize for the individual because it's going to be very difficult for me to assign, a number and say it's 50, it's 100, it's, whatever number of carbs. 200 carbs could be low for a very active individual. 200 carbs could be excessive for somebody that's not very active. So we're just going to say relative to the individual. So if you are consuming carbs that are too low relative to your needs and your, activity level, things like that, it can impact your thyroid function. And as you may know, you may not know, your thyroid is, what's regulating your metabolism. You want to think of it sort of like a thermostat. So when it's impaired, the thermostat can be lowered, depending on what your metabolic environment is. So what it actually does, it inhibits the conversion of T3 to T4, which are thyroid hormones, and you absolutely, want those to be working properly when you're in the midst of dieting. So you definitely don't want to impair your thyroid function. Some signs that you may have impaired your thyroid function is cold sensitivity. If you're very sensitive to the cold, it may not necessarily be that you lost so much body fat that now you're very sensitive, to different temperatures. It's sometimes more so that you have impacted your thyroid function. You may be subclinical hypothyroid, and you may have lowered it. So that's one thing to look out for. If you're really, not sure, you don't want to go in for a test, you can take your morning temperature when you wake up. So if your morning temperature is under 98.6, there's a pretty good chance that you may have some subclinical hypothyroidism going on, or maybe something even at a clinical level. So you might want to go get that checked out. Another thing, if you are an athlete and you are very low carb, maybe you're a runner, you're a CrossFitter, something like that, those activities typically need a fair amount of carbohydrates and a fair amount of fuel to, help you run. So if you don't take in enough carbohydrates, you may start burning muscle tissue, and not fat. It really depends on your intensity level and what your nutrition protocol is around everything else that you're doing. But you are at risk of losing some muscle tissue if you are highly athletic and you're expending a lot of energy and a lot of calories, and you're working out at a certain level. That may happen. Low carb diet's not going to be for you. Some people do try to burn fat as fuel. That works for some people. It doesn't work for some people. So you really have to, be willing to listen to your body to see what the feedback is. So the last point that I'm going to talk about, this is the third point. If your carbs are too low, that usually means that you are not getting enough prebiotic fiber. And if you don't get enough prebiotic fiber, that is the literal food or the fuel for the good gut bacteria in your gut. So if you're not taking in the food for it, it's not going to have enough to multiply and proliferate the GI tract and keep everything functioning, properly. So that can be a really major issue. You must have enough prebiotic fiber, and that's coming, from like your fruits and vegetables and grains, and things like that. So I'm going to add one more, fourth point, a bonus point. If you are low carbing and you suddenly have this, like spare tire type of effect around your waist, or maybe you've always had it, if that is not changing and you're going very low carb, or it may even be getting worse, there's a very good chance that you have taken your carbs too low, and you may be an individual. Hey, Cherise, thank you. You may have taken your carbs too low, and you now have a cortisol response going on, or a stress response to not having enough fuel, to do the things you're trying to do. So there are some people that will actually gain fat around their waist when their carbs are too low because of this cortisol stress response to not having enough carbohydrate. So like I said, this is going to be a specific individual. Some people, experience this, some people do not. There can be other reasons why there's a spare tire effect going on around your waist. So, you kind of want to look into that and see what could be causing it. But the first thing I would look at is seeing how low your carbs are. And if they are excessively low, if they've been excessively low for too long and it's not budging, it could be that your carbs are too low. So I do want to just disclaimer, there are certain people that do need to have low carbs and very low carbs for certain reasons, and they're always, metabolic. It's for their best health improvement. We need to limit and restrict their carbs, but it's not as great of a population as most people think there is. There are a lot of people that can actually eat more carbohydrates than they think they can, and they need it for the reasons I just talked about. So good thyroid function, good prebiotic fiber, and for fuel. If you're working out and your carbs are too low, you may be compromising, a lot of the efforts that you're doing in the gym. So that wraps up my talk for tonight on, low carb, things to look for. I'm going to be continuing with these videos this week, so stay tuned. I usually do them sometime between 6 or 7 o'clock. And if you have any questions, just pop them in the comments. I'll answer them. If you found this useful, please feel free to share. I do appreciate it, and thanks for joining me.